Hi friends, welcome to my 5th episode of I Said What I Said. Today I am going to be going through quite the variety of topics, so bear with me and definitely leave your comments. Start off with something that might be a little heavy, but I wanted to talk about it because I think it's been going on a lot on Twitter and stuff, and I wanted to just kind of run through everything. So Stephanie Vaquer, she showed up in AEW's Forbidden Door pay-per-view right from CMLL. Absolutely amazing, so talented, had a fantastic match with Mercedes. Okay, fast forward, it is rumored that she is getting offers from both AEW and WWE. She chose WWE, and ever since then a bunch of information has I don't want to say been brought to light because it was out there, but it's become a lot more well known since she chose WWE to sign with. So let's kind of talk through it. Essentially, a little over a year ago, it's dated as March 3rd, there was a fight that they were having in their home, and he was arrested for domestic assault and attempted murder because he put his hands around her neck and essentially choked her. He obviously then went to jail. He was arrested, he went to jail, and that was, like I said, over a year ago. So I didn't know this information. I didn't know much about her. I had vaguely heard about the situation happening, but I didn't know the people involved. But now that's all kind of coming out since she had this crazy amazing match at Forbidden Door, and now with the WWE signing, everybody's kind of looking into her more, so all of this is kind of coming out. When this occurred, couple concerning items to kind of go along with this. So first and foremost, I think a lot of us have heard of Conan, right? Conan. He had made some comments about I have it here, some comments about the fight and kind of just talking about what happened between Stephanie and Quattrero. And he essentially said that they had gotten into a fight. He was messing around. He grabbed her by the throat and she had marks on her throat, and it was a real big deal. First and foremost, it concerns me that he's like, oh, he was just messing around. There are photos that of the literal marks along her neck. That's not messing around. That's not joking. This isn't something to crack jokes about. So concerning that that was his kind of statement about it. It goes from he was messing around to it was a real big deal, and then he goes, he actually went to jail and he's still in jail. Well, yes. So, and then following that, so I didn't know that much. I don't know much about this Quattrero guy, but apparently he has brothers throughout the wrestling industry, and Roosh is one of them. And apparently Roosh and Dralistico are two people. When Quattrero went to jail, he had petitioned the judge to let him out on to finish out his sentence on house arrest rather than be in jail. It was denied, obviously, citing his anger management issues and the likelihood that he would have some sort of interaction with Stephanie. And basically he said that there was the judge said that there was evidence of him harassing her. So no, you don't get to finish out on house arrest because we don't trust you. So when the judge denied that petition, so essentially once it was denied, there was a protest going on that was gained a little bit of traction, but Roosh and Dralistico were kind of leading that charge, or they were at the very least very involved in that whole matter. So when that information came out, one, fuck both of you, bye. But two, that kind of made a lot of people go oh, okay, so her going to WWE makes even more sense. Respectfully, TK, if I'm Stephanie, even if I guess she has said WWE is her dream, so I love that for her anyway, and I'm sure that was probably the biggest factor in her choosing WWE, and that's great. But I had made the tweet that I was now seeing kind of full picture, I'm that makes even more sense. And I meant it more as in obviously she's not going to go to AEW because Roosh and Dralistico are kind of bigger names there, in that kind of scenario where she would cross paths with them here and there occasionally, whatever, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere near them either. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Going off of that, people were there oh, well, Dragon Lee in WWE, that's his brother also, and he still follows him on Instagram. one, I don't think it doesn't look great that he follows him on Instagram technically, but my personal opinion on it is like Dragon Lee was a no-show for support of his brother physically or online. He was a no-show at the protest. He doesn't seem to be supporting him in any which way. I'm sure like he's like, oh, that like that's my brother, that's family, but like he has not shown any public support of this man whatsoever. So if I'm Stephanie, obviously I could be missing a personal kind of aspect to this, but looking at it, like, Dragon Lee doesn't really seem to be supporting him, so in which case I don't think that would be a factor for Stephanie going to WWE, for one. Two, if it's her dream, fucking go for it. Three, that's not somebody she would most likely be crossing paths with anyway. So I just kind of wanted to talk about this for a little bit because I think there's been a lot of kind of discussion and like discourse around like why she chose WWE, why wouldn't she want to go to AEW, and let me just put it bluntly. It's fuck Roosh. It's fuck Dralistico. It is fuck Quattrero, whatever his fucking name is. I don't know. I haven't seen any information about when he like gets out or how long he was sentenced for, any of that. So if anybody has more information on that would be great. I was searching for like 30 minutes and couldn't find a ton of information. So if anybody has it, please feel free to direct me. And we wish the best for Stephanie in WWE. I think she's going to be amazing. Like, when we were watching Forbidden Door, Johnny was immediately like, this is my favorite wrestler ever to exist. Like, she's just so talented. And, like, she is athletic. She is strong. She can do, like, the flippy shit. She's just super, super fun to watch. And I think she's going to have some really amazing matches. I think she's starting in NXT. But she's going to be so, so fun and amazing to watch. And I'm sure down the road we will have some bangers between, like, her and Bianca, her and Jade, her and Rhea, Liv, like, all those women. So I cannot wait to see more of her in WWE. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was, is TNA losing in their partnership with WWE? Now, when I started kind of crafting what I was going to talk about for this segment of the episode, I was definitely leaning towards a yes, they are losing. This was a little bit ago. Now, I'm feeling a little more 50-50 for a couple of reasons. So originally when I was looking at it, there were a bunch of wrestlers kind of like Jordan Grace going to NXT but losing, right? And then Joe Hendry came to NXT and obviously got big pops, right? But he was in like that battle royal and he was like out really quickly. And I remember seeing a lot of people kind of complain about that and be like, why would you not have him like in the finals at least? Like, he doesn't have to win, but at least be in the finals. And it just kind of felt like TNA wasn't getting as much as they were giving into the partnership, because then on the flip side, who NXT sent to TNA, respectfully, they sent Tatum Paxley, who's not bad, but definitely not as big a name as Jordan Grace, and then Izzy Dame was the next one. And just like, it feels like TNA's losing a little bit in that, like, yes, NXT is sending people to go and lose to Jordan, which is a good sign, but like, they're not sending like Roxanne. They're not sending Lash Legend. They're not sending Jada Parker. It's not like they're big names necessarily. And then going into the No Quarter Catch crew, who have been involved in TNA now, they're not a really like a huge name either. And I believe they have won and lost now at this point. For after post Slammiversary. So I guess they've won and lost, which I guess is good. But it just feels like TNA is sending over like Jordan Grace and Joe Hendry and like these really big names. And I guess on a more positive note, the Rascals reunion has been huge and positive both in NXT and TNA. So I think that brought me back up a little. I was viewing it a little bit better when they got like that kind of trio back together, because that's received huge pops and they've done really well both on NXT and TNA. But I kind of want to get people's thoughts on this, because on one hand, I know people are like, oh, TNA is like having their biggest Slammiversary ever and like that's amazing. Let me not question that. But I don't know if I necessarily want to credit it to WWE's partnership with them. I'm open to that, and I do think that it's probably been a piece of it or maybe a factor, but I also think there have been a lot more eyes on TNA just because they have such talented and amazing wrestlers. So I'm kind of like, because I was kind of looking into TNA before like this partnership even happened. So I'm a little up and down on that. Personally, for me, I do think there are certain aspects of it where I think WWE could do a little more. Like, they could send Roxanne over to TNA to do something with Jordan, or, you know, Alicia is somebody that I just saw for the first time. It's Slammiversary. But people seem to really like her. So, like, Roxanne could go over, you know, and have a match or something with Alicia. Something like that. Where I just think they could be giving a little bit more. I know there was a quote that came out recently about, I guess, Moose made a comment about, like, I guess AEW was really selfish in their partnership with them. And I'm not saying against that. I'm not saying I don't hear that. I just don't know if WWE is, like, leaps and bounds ahead of that, per se. And I know a lot of people were disappointed with kind of the lack of TNA wins in NXT. So I'm interested to see how this goes. I do think that regardless, it is a helpful partnership for both, and especially for TNA to, like, send some of their stars over. I just wish that we got a little bit more out of it, I think. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is something that has been kind of on my mind for a little while now, and this does, I think, in a way, touch on tribalism a little bit, which I feel like I'm never done talking about because it just is always happening. But wrestling fans don't like wrestling. That is something that I have seen pop up a lot in the last few months, especially on Twitter and, like, YouTube and TikTok, and, like, all these creators kind of talking about it. And I did make a TikTok on this where I was like, you know, for a while I thought that that wasn't true. I was like, what do you mean wrestling fans don't like wrestling? Like, they just hate AEW or whatever. I'm starting to feel like it's true. And I think there is good and bad to kind of what's happening right now. I think on one hand, like, professional wrestling is not just wrestling. So I think that it's good that, like, the entertainment aspect of it is really coming to light, and, like, there's a bigger importance on it, on, like, the, you know, the character work and storylines and mic work and things. I'm glad that those are becoming, like, factors that people care about more. I think that's really, really great. But I think the wrestling fans don't like wrestling. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But I think a big kind of turning point with that theory, or, like, that perspective, happened when we had the 1 hour Will Ospreay MJF wrestling match. That match occurred, and people were just nitpicking the fuck out of it. As always, my favorite hater, Bully Ray, was bitching about the ref not counting them out when they, like, had gone up the stairs and they did that spot where, like, the little girl hit MJF, which was so cute, by the way. And here's the thing. I hear that. But we had said on the podcast, like, wait, aren't they supposed to count them out? It's not that serious. So I think it kind of goes both ways. I think certain wrestling fans, like Bully Ray, are way too nitpicky and bitching because it is entertainment. It's supposed to be, like, it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be a story. It's supposed to be, like, have a good time while you're watching. And I do think that kind of gets lost sometimes in things like this. Who's like, why didn't they count them out? That whole thing sucked. It's like, shut the fuck. That was, like, 5 minutes of a 1 hour match. Like, we don't need to whine and cry about it. On the flip side, you're looking at two of the best wrestlers in the world right now. No matter the company, no matter where they are, two of the best wrestlers in the world right now. Two of the most popular wrestlers in the world right now. And there's so many people complaining that we got a 60-minute match for free on TV. That's where I start to be like, you guys don't want wrestling. You just want a story. And I think that that's okay in a sense, but, like, I think a lot of people need to understand that, like, you may prefer, like, the storylines or the promos or, like, the backstage segments and, like, the funny, the entertainment side of things, but, like, you have to remember you're still watching professional wrestling. The point of the show you're watching is still wrestling. It's kind of like being like, oh, I'm watching the Vampire Diaries, but, like, they're in their vampire form for too long. It's kind of annoying. We need to, like, push that back. That's not really the point of the show. So you're going to see on Vampire Diaries a lot of vampires, and you're going to see them in their vampire form a lot. When you're watching wrestling, you're going to see a lot of wrestling matches. You're going to see a lot of wrestling. That's what you should be looking for. If you prefer the talking, the entertainment, that's fine. But, like, I think it gets missed a lot because things like the Liv Dom Rhea story is so popular, right? That I think a lot of people then start to kind of, they just want, like, the shock factor. They want, like, the reactions. They want that kind of stuff where they're, like, losing this is still about wrestling. Wrestling is still supposed to be, like, the focal point, the main part of what we're watching. And so to that end, I do think that it is becoming, like, a lot of wrestling fans don't like wrestling. A third side to this is I think a lot of those fans are like the casual WWE fans. They're not watching it for the wrestling. They are watching for the entertainment. So I think there's, like, I think what we're running into is, like, it's, again, kind of a good and a bad. Where, like, on the good side, I think wrestling is growing. And I think we're getting a lot of new kind of wrestling fans entering into, like, the community and kind of, like, either getting back into it or getting into it for the first time. And I think that's great and that's amazing. Now I think it also kind of, it's making it a little bit messy where, like, we have the, like, diehard wrestling fans who do want to watch wrestling matches and, like, have a good time with it. But then we also have the people who are kind of in the middle where they're like, I like both. I like the entertainment and I like the wrestling. That's kind of where I stand. I'm very much in the middle. Like, people will show tweets and be like, oh, there was the MJF Ospreay match was 59 minutes. On Raw this week, there was 49 minutes of wrestling total. I didn't even notice that on Raw. Like, I know they don't wrestle as much as they do other stuff, but I didn't even, like, realize the difference. And then there's the people who don't really want the wrestling. They kind of just want to watch it like a TV show. And that gives me mixed feelings because I always say, like, when people are like, oh, wrestling's fake, it's scripted, it's stupid, like, you know what's going to happen. I'm always like, it's like a TV show. Like, it's fun to watch. So then, like, now people being like, they want to watch it like a TV show with less wrestling. I'm kind of like, maybe I shouldn't have made that comparison so often, even though it's true. So I think there's good and bad to it. I think the main thing, and I feel like a broken record, is just, like, let people watch what they watch. Just let people fucking enjoy it. I will never understand. A big thing that I got is people would, like, ask me about CM Punk and Roman Reigns, and then when I talk about it, they would be like, if you hate them so much, why are you wasting your time talking about them? Like, obviously they affect you. Obviously you care. It's like, first of all, I was asked. Second of all, I can just, like, give my opinion on it and be done. There are so many people who spend so much time, and they're like, oh, I hate AEW, but they spend so much time shitting on it. And it's like, I could not imagine spending so much of my life, so much of my time online bitching about CM Punk and Roman Reigns. Could not imagine living that life and having absolutely nothing else to do. So just a reminder, as always, if you don't like it, don't watch it. Don't talk about it. Let people live. Let people breathe. Let people like what they like and move the fuck on. But I will say, I think the wrestling fans don't like wrestling. I'm starting to change my tune, and I think that might be accurate. Last topic of this episode is something that I am very passionate about. Let's talk about Jake Paul and Matthew Riddle, because we need to discuss this. First and foremost, I will preface this saying that I do not watch Jake Paul's fights. I'm not paying for that. I'm not giving money to that man. I'm just simply not doing it. But obviously, every time it happens, it's a big thing. It goes viral. It's all in the news. It's all on social media. So, like, I have seen plenty of information against my will, but I've seen plenty of information and, like, the videos and all that. And now I tweeted about this, and I was pretty sure that I was correct because Johnny follows it a lot better than I do. 95% of the time, Jake Paul is fighting, if not 100% of the time, Jake Paul is fighting somebody who is one of three things. Retired, like coming out of retirement for this fight. Extremely old, no offense. Or he is fighting somebody that is not a UFC fighter and is challenging them to a UFC match. Weird to me for so many reasons. One, everybody talks him up like he is this amazing fighter, right? And it's like, he's not, like, he's not even fighting people that are like in their prime. Like hypothetically beating somebody like Mike Tyson, right? That would be impressive. It would be a lot more impressive if you did it when he wasn't like 60. You know? When he was actually young and like in his prime and you were fighting him at like his own shit. But like calling out like, I don't know, MMA guys to do a boxing match or like boxers to do an MMA, like it's different. It's different. And you beat them in the thing that's not like their thing, their like career path, and you're like, oh, I'm the greatest. It's like, try beating them at their thing and see if you still win, because you probably won't, right? So the Matt Riddle thing, people had started talking about when Riddle had left WWE, when he was released. They were saying, oh, what if he like had gone back to UFC, and that just kind of spiraled into a, oh my god, they should do Matt Riddle Jake Paul kind of came up, right? Riddle was like, sure, whatever, I'm fucking down. He has come out a couple times recently saying that he's open to and kind of considering doing another UFC run or boxing or something like that. Unsure, but would consider it potentially, depending on kind of where his career goes next with wrestling. But basically there was an interview. I did a TikTok on this as well. There was a press conference or something, and Jake Paul was asked about Riddle, because Riddle was like, oh, he's ducking me, because he hasn't like answered or even like said yes or no. He's just kind of ignoring the whole thing. So Riddle was like, oh, he's ducking me. So somebody asked about it. It's like, Matt Riddle said that you're ducking him. Like, do you have a response to that? And he was like, oh, I don't know who that is. They have literally met in person. You know exactly who this is, on top of the fact that your brother's been wrestling in WWE for how long now? Riddle has been out less than a year. You know who he is. So, first and foremost, Jake Paul's a bitch, okay? And Riddle kind of responded to that being like, he's insecure, obviously, because if he was so, like, confident in himself and able to beat me, then he would fight me, but he also knows he's probably going to lose. Now, Riddle is very confident in his ability to fight people, and I do not disagree with that. Homeboy got some anger that comes out, okay? I also think there's a side to this where, in agreement with what a lot of people are now saying, Jake does not fight people who are both in their prime, like athletic and younger, and in their own style of fighting. He does not do both. He may do one, he will not do both, from what I have seen. So Riddle said, I will do it for free, because knocking Jake Paul out is worth it. Facts. He said, I would do it for free and in whatever fucking style, I don't care. Riddle does not give a fuck. He will train every day straight for 6 months to prep for a fight in like boxing instead of MMA if that's what Jake wants to do. He does not care. And so when I had tweeted about like the whole Riddle thing, and then I tweeted about like Jake does not fight the correct people for him to be acting like he is so fucking impressive, most people agreed. I did get one guy who was like, Matt Riddle's like a no-name, like in that world. Like, why would Jake want to fight him? I was like, Matt was literally a UFC fighter for like a decade. I don't know how many years, but it was for like a really long time. I was like, Riddle was literally a UFC fighter for like how many years? The fuck do you mean he's a no-name in that space? That's where he became famous, was in the fucking UFC. I do think it gives a weird... Paul brother fans are just weird to me, if I'm being honest, because a lot of them are like, oh, they're so much better now, and it's like, well, Logan the bar was on the floor, but that's fine. But if I'm looking at Jake Paul, I'm like, I don't know. I guess I'm unsure how what I'm saying about him isn't like overtly clear to everybody else. Like, I don't know much about boxing, UFC, MMA, any of that stuff. And me looking at it, like, even I can see, I'm like, he's not fighting people that, like, should make him as confident as he is. In that he is, like Mike Tyson fucking pulled out because dude has ulcers. Come on. Like, come on now. This is not You are not fighting somebody young and in their prime. Like, let's not act like you're doing like this big badass thing. Like, it's just really weird to me. So anyway, I am ending this segment on let's start a petition, a riot, a something to get Matt Riddle versus Jake Paul, because I will be fucking seated. And I am so confident in Riddle's ability to take this man out. I'm ready. I'm so fucking ready. Thank you guys so much for watching. I am going to go record the second half of this episode now that goes up on our Triple Threat Pod Patreon. A few things that I'm going to be talking about. Tony Schiavone recently called Mariah May a bitch, and the internet has lost their minds. I'm going to talk about continuing the Paul brothers' problems. Has Logan Paul ever had a good promo? Let's talk about it. I am going to talk about a personal pet peeve of mine. Fans booing their own player. It kind of came up as we were talking about baseball, and it was something I wanted to talk about. And finally, I'm going to have a segment about wrestlers who are not clicking in their current company. Where they should go, the reasons why, would it be better, all those sorts of things. So make sure that you join our Patreon and go check that out. I'm going to go record that right now, and thank you for watching.